The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. From error to error, one discovers the entire truth. The unconscious of one human being can react upon that of another without passing through the conscious. Civilization began the first time an angry person cast a word instead of a rock. The ego is not master in its own house. Most people do not really want freedom because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. Love and work are the cornerstones of our humanness. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. Dreams are often most profound when they seem the most crazy. The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. Where does a thought go when it's forgotten? He who has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips. Betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. The great question that has never been answered and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is what does a woman want? America is a mistake, a giant mistake. Men are more moral than they think and far more immoral than they can imagine. A man should not strive to eliminate his complexes, but to get into accord with them. They are legitimately what directs his conduct in the world. Time spent with cats is never wasted. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. When I look at the world, I'm pessimistic, but when I look at people, I am optimistic. Anatomy is destiny. The goal of all life is death. Everywhere I go, I find a poet has been there before me. A look of inquiry is fatal to love. Immorality, no less than morality, has at all times found support in religion. Neurosis is the inability to tolerate ambiguity. We are what we are because we have been what we have been. Words have a magical power. They can bring either the greatest happiness or deepest despair. In the small matters, trust the mind. In the large ones, the heart. The more the fruits of knowledge become accessible to men, the more widespread is the decline of religious belief. The first human who hurled an insult instead of a stone was the founder of civilization. Opposition is not necessarily enmity. It is merely misused and made an occasion for enmity. The creative writer does the same as the child at play. He creates a world of fantasy which he takes very seriously. The only person with whom you have to compare yourself is you in the past. Beauty has no obvious use, nor is there any clear cultural necessity for it, yet civilization could not do without it. Religion is an illusion, and it derives its strength from the fact that it falls in with our instinctual desires. A religion, even if it calls itself a religion of love, must be hard and unloving to those who do not belong to it. It is impossible to overlook the extent to which civilization is built upon a renunciation of instinct. Human beings are funny. They long to be with the person they love, but refuse to admit openly. Some are afraid to show even the slightest sign of affection because of fear. Fear that their feelings may not be recognized, or even worse, returned. No one who, like me, conjures up the most evil of those half-tamed demons that inhabit the human breast and seeks to wrestle with them can expect to come through the struggle unscathed. Behind every exquisite thing that existed, there was something tragic. The creative mind plays with the objects it loves. Children are completely egoistic. They feel their needs intensely and strive ruthlessly to satisfy them. Most people don't really want to change the world. They are only interested in their own neurosis. The psychoanalysis of individual human beings, however, teaches us with quite special insistence that the God of each of them is far from being the echo of the voice of the people. It is rather the echo of the voice of his parents. Anyone who thinks must recognize that there are no final answers to anything. The more perfect a person is on the outside, the more demons they have on the inside. I have found little that is good about human beings on the whole. In my experience, most of them are trash, no matter whether they publicly subscribe to this or that ethical doctrine or to none at all. Men are strong so long as they represent a strong idea. They become powerless when they oppose it. Love is a state of temporary psychosis. A woman should soften but not weaken a man. It is not I who am strong, it is reason, it is truth. The madman is a dreamer awake. In the depths of my heart, I can't help being convinced that my dear fellow men, with a few exceptions, are worthless. To be completely honest with oneself is the very best effort a human being can make. The first requisite of civilization is that of justice. Sadism is all right in its place, but it should be directed to proper ends. The intention that man should be happy is not in the plan of creation. We must begin to love in order not to fall ill. The act of birth is the first experience of anxiety, and thus the source and prototype of the affect of anxiety. One feels inclined to say that the intention that man should be happy is not included in the plan of creation. Every normal person, in fact, is only normal on the average. His ego approximates to that of the psychotic in some part or other, and to a greater or lesser extent. The only thing about myself that I consider to be severe enough to justify my being born is my extraordinary capacity for sensual pleasure. Whoever loves becomes humble. Those who love have, so to speak, pawned a part of their narcissism. A man's dreams are an index to his greatness. There are no mistakes. The events we bring upon ourselves, no matter how unpleasant, are necessary in order to learn what we need to learn. Whatever steps we take, they're necessary to reach the places we've chosen to go. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love, never so forlornly unhappy as when we have lost our love object or its love. Just as no one can be forced into belief, so no one can be forced into unbelief. The task of making a man happy had been entrusted to the sexual function alone. The only abnormality is the incapacity to love. The price we pay for our advance in civilization is a loss of happiness through the heightening of the sense of guilt. One must not be mean with the affections. What is spent of the fund is renewed in the spending itself. Anxiety is the price we pay for civilization. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise and very painful. A certain degree of neurosis is of inestimable value as a drive, especially to a psychologist. The psychical, whatever its nature may be, is itself unconscious. Civilized society is perpetually menaced with disintegration through this primary hostility of men towards one another. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. The tendency to aggression is an innate, independent, instinctual disposition in man. It constitutes the powerful obstacle to culture. Whoever wishes to become a philosopher must learn not to be frightened by absurdities. Our civilization is largely responsible for our misery, and that we would be much happier if we gave it up and returned to primitive conditions. We cannot escape from our own epoch, as we cannot escape from our own skin. It is the age that has formed us. The liberty of the individual is no gift of civilization. It was greatest before there was any civilization. What is called love in the courtship phase is essentially sexual attraction. The psychopathology of everyday life remains an unexplored country. Only a few corners of it have been mapped. Mortals are immortal in their words and deeds. A strong egoism is a protection against disease, but in the last resort we must begin to love in order not to fall ill. The finding of an object is, in fact, a refinding of it. The goal towards which the pleasure principle impels us, of becoming happy, is not attainable, yet we may not, nay, cannot, give up the efforts to come nearer to realization of it by some means or other. The more the fruits of knowledge become accessible to men, the more widespread is the decline of religious belief. We are so made that we can derive intense enjoyment only from a contrast and very little from a state of things. Where it is, there shall ego be. We are not masters in our own house. Civilization is such an effort, and above all, it's an effort to restrict the egoistic impulses.